prioritization, helping them to focus on what is really crucial for their learning is a very important part of that structure. I think this was definitely a feature during the pandemic, that the scaffolding was needed because there wasn't the peer interaction in the same way, and the sort of the encounters that you would have on the margins, you know, talking to each other in the lecture theatre, having a conversation with the professor after the lecture, were that some of that was there, but very often it was absent in that online environment, and so there was a need for more structure. And I think as students have come through from, you know, the last 2 years of schooling that many of them had were in those sort of pandemic situations, or if they've coming from a master's degree, the last 2 years they were at university, they've got used to that scaffolding. And I think it's very difficult once you've kind of added features to a product. If I use kind of a marketing, you know, well, you know, my background is marketing, so I'm afraid I kind of think like a marketer, even though I you know, teach at a university. So maybe that you can't take features out in easily once you've put them in. I think one of the things that the scaffolding did was, as you say, give structure. And actually, we produce so many resources very often as professors that we overwhelmed students sometimes, that there was too much for them to actually look at. So in a way, that structure, and particularly helping them to prioritize, has become, I would say, probably the main thing. So yes, I agree with you with structure, but if I kind of nuance that a little bit, I think it's about helping them prioritize what they should look at. A lot of students are incredibly time poor. I know that sounds strange. You and I probably remember being at university and appearing to have lots of time on our hands, but you know, current students very often have part-time jobs because, you know, they're paying off huge loans in many cases, or they want to get the work experience. They do a lot more coursework in some ways than students in the past, and actually a lot of extracurricular activities, so that they have very full lives, and also a lot of other things that I mean, you know, certainly when I was at university, social media didn't exist. You went out and socialized face to face. So there are lots of other things which they are grappling with. So I think that prioritization, helping them to focus on what is really crucial for their learning, is a very important part of that structure. I think we have to be careful that we don't put in, that we don't keep adding, and we don't add too much there, because one of the things that we have to be very mindful of is that university is about self-directed learning very often. And we need to create learners that are self-directed and are able to learn on their own, without a huge amount of guidance. So I think it depends on the level you're teaching. If you're teaching, say, first year undergraduate, then you probably need to put a lot more structure in than if you're teaching a final year group, or even if you're teaching, you know, specialist masters courses. But yes, I agree that structure is there. The scaffolding has become important. I don't think we should remove the scaffolding we've put in place as a result of the pandemic, because it's added good value. But I think we have to be careful that we don't end up spoon feeding students, that they do have agency, and they do manage their own learning and take responsibility for that learning, because in the end, that's what employers are going to want. Employers don't want people who are going to turn around and go, well, I need more scaffolding, I need more support. Most employers, in my experience, are saying, we actually want self-starters, self-reliant, people who can manage their own time, manage their own learning, manage their own careers. So I think there's a balance to be struck. Some structure is good, but also allowing students to go off and pursue their own ideas and their own their own learning is also something we need to encourage as well, particularly as they progress through their degree.